Predators lose 1-0 in overtime to the St. Louis Blues. Ellie Tolvanen goes to the Seattle Kraken, and the entire Preds fan base is on fire. A lot to talk about, so let's not waste any time. You're listening to the Locked On Predators podcast.
You're Locked On Predators, your daily podcast on the Nashville Predators. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Thank you for making Locked On Predators your first listen of the day. Every single day, we are your free Nashville Predators podcast that's available to you on all platforms, wherever you get your podcast, and of course on YouTube. I'm Nick Morgan. I'm a writer and editor at ontheforecheck.com, and I have a partner in crime who you've had a few days. You've had a past few days since I've last done this show with you.
Yes, you are actually no longer allowed to leave the podcast for any reason whatsoever because everything goes up in flames. I'm Ann Kimmel. I'm a writer and editor at InsideThePreds.com.
You'll be happy to know the Vegas Golden Knights didn't look good.
Well, there's something.
Yeah. Well, I mean, they were missing half their team, but
well, we take what we can get today.
Also won $185 on roulette. So
nice. Hey. Vegas was good to you.
They did. Yeah.
Good.
Yeah. I'm glad something was good to somebody between us. Yeah. God. Where do we even start?
Yeah.
Like this is normally how we do this is we have a rundown. Mm-hmm. We do like the most noteworthy stuff first, kind of break down a game, one word and all that, maybe get to some news and notes at the end, but there's just so much going on that I don't know where we even start this show, Ann.
Yeah, there is a lot to address outside of what we normally talk about, outside of, game results, outside of Predators news. For instance, Ellie Tolvanen, in case anyone didn't see it on Twitter, was picked up by the Seattle Kraken. So he will go to the West Coast. So Ellie Tolvanen's gone. You got to miss the Ellie Tolvanen on waivers firestorm, Nick. And I had a great opportunity to say a bit of my piece about that. You have not had a chance to kind of share what your thoughts are on Tolvanen on waivers, on Tolvanen leaving the Nashville Predators.
Yeah.
So, I would like to open the floor if you want to kind of share any thoughts that you may have on what transpired while you were winning money on roulette.
Yeah. Well, here's the thing. Like I checked it, I checked Twitter when it happened. Mm-hmm. And, my first thought was, that's too bad, but could kind of see this coming,
Right.
That was kind of one of those things. I expected backlash when I got back and started catching up on things. That was expected, but unexpected.
Mm-hmm.
There's a lot of grandstanding going on, I think, when it comes to that. I'm going to address that part of it in a second. Mm-hmm. I'm going to focus on Ellie Tolvanen first.
Okay.
I like Ellie Tolvanen. I was cheering for him.
Right.
Is the lockout shortened in 2021 where he came out and just, lit really the entire league on fire. Like he was at one point from when he called out, like his first month of call up, he was one of the hottest scorers in the entire NHL. And that was really fun. And we all had high hopes for him. Last season, disappointing. And I know that people are, saying, oh, well, look, he was healthy scratched at the end and, he wasn't getting a chance and all that and blah, 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 blah. But he did. He did get his chance. He was
played 75 games.
Yeah. And he spent most of that with either Ryan Johansson or Mikael Granlund as a center. So it's not like he wasn't put in a position to succeed, you know, and he did less than or with more resources than Phil Tomasino did. So like let's put that out there. We were hoping maybe a bounce back year, Nino Niederreiter comes in, gives a better wing to that second line, maybe opens it up for Eeli Tolvanen. Didn't really get a chance this year, but at the same time, he didn't really play like he deserved a chance. You know what I'm saying? Where he there's something off about his game. He just kind of looked like a shell of what we saw 2 years ago. And look, there's a lot of speculation. Everybody's got to have like their think piece or say their piece. Oh, was there an attitude issue behind the scenes? Did he have a confidence issue? That's not for us to guess. That's just for, that's between John Hynes, David Poile, and Eeli Tolvanen. The fact of the matter is that he just wasn't working here anymore.
Mm-hmm.
He wasn't producing here in the way that the Preds needed him to. He wasn't the player the Preds needed him to be based on his skill set. And, you and I have talked about this before, Ann. Is there something that, the Preds maybe could have tried? Could they have kind of reshuffled their philosophy, maybe tried to get, a more consistent, maybe a scoring third line instead of kind of a grinding third line and see how that goes? Sure.
Maybe.
I think so. It still was holding out hope for the Cody Glass, Phil Tomasino, and Eeli Tolvanen line. That would have been fun to see.
Mm-hmm.
But you know what? In terms of how he fit in to the Preds right now, he didn't. And he wasn't getting playing time. And it sounds like the Preds, if you believe the report from Sean Shapiro on The Athletic, it sounds like the Preds maybe thought that he was going to go unclaimed. Based on the way the waiver shook out, I mean, that sounds like that was at least close to happening because the Kraken were 22nd in the order, 23rd.
They were way down.
Yeah. Which means, at least 21 teams, the worst teams right now passed on him. There's also consideration about his contract. He's an RFA coming up and, he's got, $1.5 million cap hit, something like that at the moment. So there's a lot that just, it didn't really make sense anymore for Tolvanen to be here. And, maybe he would have gone to Milwaukee and revamped his game. Maybe the Preds thought that was going to happen. But from Eeli Tolvanen's standpoint, he's going to get a chance to kind of refine his game, rebuild his confidence. And I hope that happens in Milwaukee. I've seen some people say, oh, he's going to jump into Matty Benier's line and automatically be like
Burakovsky
scorer.
Yeah.
He's not going on to Matty Benier's line. I think they have a pretty good third line, which right now has, I think, Morgan Geekie and Brandon Tanev, so Eeli Tolvanen might be a fit there. He might jump in with, somebody like, when Jonas Donskoy comes back, that's a nice little Finnish connection there. They got some depth. So, he might be a good third, fourth line guy, but he's not. We got to drop the illusion that he's going to go and immediately become like a 50 goal scorer. I mean, it'd be fun to see him do that.
Right.
We like him. Yeah. But I don't think that's going to happen. I wish the best for him. Yeah. I wish the best for Eeli Tolvanen. In terms of some of the reaction, it's, like those couples that like get, randomly start like the biggest fights for absolutely no reason, where it's like, the husband brings home the wrong kind of jelly from the store. And then that starts an argument. And all of a sudden, like the husband's throws his PlayStation headset at the TV and the wife is like spending the night in a hotel somewhere because she's like thinking of leaving him. And you think, You know what? I don't think that was about the jelly. I think that was about something more than the jelly. That's Ellie Tolvanen is the jelly.
Yeah.
He is the jelly of the Nashville Predators fan base.
Yes.
I think some people, a tragic amount of, a tragic large amount of people, I think they're looking for any excuse to get the torches and pitchforks.
Absolutely.
I think they were
Absolutely.
looking for anything that they didn't like that they could turn this into. This is the final straw. Something needs to change. They just needed. We've seen little vents of that come out this year, just because I think Preds fans are not happy with the direction of the team,
Right.
and they're choosing this as the catalyst. But you take a step back, and when it boils down to is there is discourse over the Predators putting a guy who wasn't playing and wasn't scoring and honestly wasn't really defending either. They put a guy like that on waivers. If this was any other time period, any other team,
any other name,
yeah. Maybe not Filip Forsberg, but
fair.
If this was any other thing around the league right now, you would have just been like, man, that sucks.
Yeah.
But whatever. Instead, this has become, for some reason, a rallying point.
Yes.
And I personally don't think it should be. I think this is just, one of those things where it sucks that he has to go, but he wasn't working out. And look, if we want to have a separate conversation about, somehow a rash of star young forwards not really being able to reach their potential in Nashville or their development cutting short, if we need to have that conversation, then we can have that conversation. But to have Ellie Tolvanen as the catalyst for that.
Yes.
In terms of the waivers, the waivers move was probably the right move, if we're being honest. But we can have that separate conversation about forwards not working out in Nashville. I think we're in the stage where multiple things can be true. Like, you can say, you know what, Tolvanen wasn't working. Contract is what it is. Maybe, best case scenario, he, clears waivers, rehabs in Milwaukee, finds his game, and then maybe, we'll see where he fits at the end of the season when his contract's up. That's best case scenario. Worst case scenario, you lose a forward who clearly didn't factor into your long-term plans, or at least, wasn't playing at all worthy of a roster spot right now.
Right.
That's what that boils down to. But it's got to be, that's the gist of the Tolvanen move itself, in my mind. If there are bigger conversations, we can have bigger conversations. But I think in terms of this, you got to break it down into the aspects.
Yeah, I agree with you. Tolvanen is the jelly. I think that is 100% the truth. This is, when you look at this move in a vacuum, when you look at this move just on paper, when you look at this move you have a guy who played third and fourth line minutes when he played and didn't produce when he played. And the Predators were paying
4 points in 13 games, but also, what was his big thing? We always talked about is, at least he's got like a nice little underrated 200-foot game. That wasn't there this season.
No, that wasn't there this season. And his contract is taking up space. And here's the thing, in all the outrage that nobody brought up, is that Nashville's down 2 defensemen and needs to bring defensemen up. And you've got to do something with cap space, but nobody wants to talk about the logistics of this. Everybody wants to talk about the histrionics of this. And it has become, Ellie Tolvanen is the jelly. Ellie Tolvanen's the jelly.
No.
It's not about the jelly.
It's not about the jelly. It is
Not
about
about the
so
jelly.
much more.
Yeah.
There's some other aspects of what I've
Mhm.
seen over the last little bit, and maybe we should save that for the game recap because there's something else
Mhm.
that's really bothered me over the past couple of days as I've been kind of catching up on Preds news that honestly makes me more angry than the Tolvanen discourse right now. And so I would like to speak on that in just a second.
Mhm.
Let's take a break though. We want to mention today's show is brought to you by our friends at BetOnline. BetOnline.net is your number one source for sports betting info, stats, news, and analysis. You can get the latest odds and trends for every professional and amateur league out there, from pro football, college bowl season, basketball, the World Cup, and of course, everything you need to know when it comes to hockey and the NHL. They got it all at betonline.net. And if you love sports podcasts like the one you're listening to right now, you can find those at BetOnline as well. They're always the fastest and easiest way to get your betting info. So head to the website today or use your mobile device to learn more. BetOnline, where the game starts. All right, Ann. Let's talk about some on ice stuff.
That sounds way
Let's
more
do
fun.
that. Well, does it?
Well, actually, it does.
really
If that's a
more,
perspective check, it does sound more fun to talk about a 1-0 overtime loss to the St. Louis Blues right now.
yeah.
It's a palate cleanse.
This is maybe the shortest recap you'll ever hear me say.
Mhm.
The Predators and Blues. Nothing happened for 3 periods. We go to overtime. A unfortunate stick situation occurs, and then that paves the way towards Braden Shen winning it in overtime on the 3-on-3. Blues win the game 1-0.
Mhm.
And what's your one word to describe last night's 1-0 overtime loss? Thrilling game in St. Louis last night.
Yeah, it's along those veins. My one word is actually along those veins. So I have a very dear friend who struggles and has struggled for years with insomnia and has done all sorts of everything you can think of to help with her insomnia. And so finally she found the thing that worked, and it is my one word, and that is sleepy juice. So she takes ZzzQuil, and we're not, again, this is not a commercial for ZzzQuil, but ZzzQuil works for her, but she calls it sleepy juice because otherwise it just seems a little less classy. And that game last night was literally like sitting down at 7 a.m. right as the puck began to drop and just taking your swig of sleepy juice. Nothing happened. When we tell you that not much happened, not much happened. I mean, Nashville generated some chances, but they only got 25 shots on goal.
St. Louis
So
didn't really do much either.
St. Louis only had 24 shots on goal. You know, the goaltenders didn't really have to make these exceptional, outstanding saves. You can have a 1-0 overtime game that's really exciting, but this was not it, friends. This was not it. This was it was a hard game to recap. It was a hard game to recap. You could almost not make a paragraph of information about each of the periods, except to say, oh, there was a penalty. Nobody did anything on the power play. Hey, there was a penalty. Ooh, still nothing. Ryan Johansson had a hat trick of infractions. He apparently thought that there was some sort of barbecue in the sin bin, continued to go back. This game was just boring. I mean, it was not exciting. And it would have been fantastic if I can live with a boring game if you can get 2 points out of it. The Predators did get 1 point. And so in December, can we just be thankful for any points with this schedule? But yeah, this was a game where you just toasted with sleepy juice and you didn't miss much.
To me, Anne, with my one word, I don't know how you're going to feel about this. As the theater person.
Okay.
My one word is cats.
Oh.
As the musical Cats, that's like that and Phantom of the Opera, maybe like the 2 like longest, most famous musicals of all time. So I saw it. I'm like, oh, you know, it's been around for decades. It's got to be like, fun and good. And, I'm sitting there for 2 hours and they're like, okay, they're all still in the same spot, just talking about themselves one at a time. It's got to pick up here soon. And then, the decrepit little cat steps up and wins the contest. And then you're like, oh, yay. Now what happens? And then they all go on the balloon ride or whatever it is together. And it just ends. And it's like, that's it. I sat through all of that, and that's how it ends. That sucked. That wasn't fun at all.
No.
That was boring.
Yes.
I was like, I feel like I just wasted a lot of time sitting through that.
It's people dressed as cats, y'all.
Yeah. And wasn't it supposed to be like they just die at the end? Like that's it? Like the contest is who gets to die?
I'm going to be honest with you. I saw it one time and I grew up in the era where people raved about it. And so I finally went and saw it and I sat there the whole time and I was like, I thought this was going to be some sort of existential thing, like cats is symbolic. It's people dressed as cats, acting like cats.
Yeah.
It's excruciating. It is terrible. It's terrible.
Not good. It's so bad.
It's so bad.
Just like this hockey game was just so bad. I mean, it's like there are some players I want to highlight, and we'll get to it in just a second, but it's like even like, like UC Saros, almost got the shutout, got, no goals through three periods. Probably should have gotten the shutout. But even it's not like he was like, just diving for pucks left and right. No. This isn't just like oh dear God, like UC Saros bailed this team out. It was just like a bunch of pretty good, like a bunch of good saves, but not like a game-stealing performance or anything like that. No. I mean, credit to him. Like, and then it's just, why?
It was hockey players, dressed as hockey players, acting like hockey players, and nothing happened.
And then it ends with the sweet embrace of everybody dying, I guess. It's Anne, why is this team so hard to talk about right now? Can we not have just one fun thing? Could Ryan Johansson not at least like put on a clown hat or something in the press box, or like, could somebody have just taken a run at Jordan Binnington? Can something fun about this game? Can something fun about this stupid team right now happen?
Yeah, we're not having a lot of fun right now. Not having a lot of fun. And of course, the on ice product has definitely got to take some responsibility for that, because the Nashville Predators, it's very hard to have fun when your team loses to the Ottawa Senators. It's very hard to have fun when your team only gets 1 point against a struggling St. Louis Blues team who has the worst penalty kill in the league, and they gift you with a Christmas bow 4 opportunities on the power play. And you come away with bupkis. Like, it's super hard to make, like, there are not enough good adjectives in the English language to find a way to make that sound super exciting. It's not been a good on ice product the last couple of games. Not all of it has been a dumpster fire, contrary to what Hockey Twitter has said.
Yeah.
But it's just not been super fun lately. And I'm okay with that. You can be boring and win games, but I need you to win the games.
Yeah.
I need you to win the games. Yeah.
I need you to do something, because it's just
anything.
I don't know. Phil, let's talk about some players here in a second. And there's also like something. Let's I don't know. And just take us a break. Just
I
take us
think
a break, Ann.
we're going to do a real quick palate cleanse, and then we're going to come back and we're just going to sit you down and have a frank conversation like sometimes your parents needed to do. We're going to have a very frank conversation directed towards the Nashville Predators fan base in just a minute. But if you are looking for exciting sports action, we have the answer for you. Thank you for making Locked On Predators your first listen. We do appreciate that. We're going to have much more exciting games, I'm sure, to cover sometime soon. It might not be tonight against Edmonton.
At least tonight's going to be exciting. The Edmonton Oilers are in town.
It won't be 1-0 in overtime, friends. But for your second listen today, we want you to check out Locked On Sports Today. Locked On Sports Today covers all the games that matter the most to the biggest stories in sports. You get to go beyond the scoreboard and behind the scenes with local experts, and they provide insight that only Locked On can provide. So check out Locked On Sports Today. It's available on this app, on YouTube, and wherever you get your podcast.
All right. So, look. How do I put this? How do I start?
There's so many good options.
I think, look, I'm going to preface this by saying I don't want to come off as holier than thou. I don't want to be, the smug intellectual guy who's like, ho, ha, ha. And I don't want to tell people how to be fans, because that is one of my pet peeves is, well, a real fan would think this. And, I don't want to be that guy.
Right.
If you want to come out after every, Preds win over a good team with your, stats about how this team didn't deserve the win and be like Ebenezer Scrooge at Fezziwig's Christmas party, telling him how much it costs when everybody's having a good time celebrating Christmas, fine. I'll just continue to mute you or unfollow you. That's fine. But you do you. It's not for me, but you do you. Regardless of whether you like David Poile or John Hynes, whether you think they suck, whether you think they're the problem, whether you think something needs to change, whether you think Matt Duchene or Cole Smith or UC Saros or Roman Josi are the problem, whatever, your opinion is your opinion. And I want to make that clear. What I can't abide by is something that has become way, way too common. And that is whenever anybody says anything positive about this team or has an opinion that kind of goes against the grain, there is a certain section of the fan base, and if you're listening to this and you think it's you, it's probably you I'm talking about, because there is a certain section of the fan base that I have in mind when I say this. It's a public shaming. It is a retweet, and it is like, oh, I love this person. The reason I'm saying this is because it happened with Lindsay Rowley last night. Lindsay Rowley was talking to Dan Hynes, and Dan Hynes said, I didn't catch his full remarks, but the clip I take away is, I wish, we had a team full of Cole Smiths or something like that.
Yeah.
And
he said he's an 82 game player. I actually went back and listened to it before we recorded because I also wanted to talk about this. He said he's an 82 game player. Players, are going to show up every night. It's invaluable. You can't have enough guys like that.
Yeah.
That's what he said.
Which is true.
Yeah.
Because, and hey, maybe this is part of the problem with the Predators right now. In terms of players playing their role on the team, Cole Smith is probably one of the best at doing that at the moment. That's the problem. Cole Smith, the player, is not the problem. Cole Smith being Cole Smith doing his individual job better than 70% of the team right now. That's the problem.
Thank you.
But back to Lindsay Rowley, because,
Mhm.
she was getting ripped for that question. That sparked a few people from some of our competitors of ours who will remain nameless. You know who I'm talking about. They're talking about, we need credentials so, we can ask questions, or, there's group chats going on where people are like, nobody in Nashville is asking the Preds the tough questions. It's like such a media fan base. And, they shared like these Lindsay Rowley tweets. And, Lindsay Rowley said, there's a lot of people like in the comments right now that are, I can't remember what she said exactly, but it came out as, basically shut the hell up and stop being holier than thou.
Yeah. She pointed out that Dan Hynes and the coaching staff have probably forgotten more about hockey than most of the people in the comments will ever know.
Yeah, which is also very true.
I mean, that's just a fact.
That is just a fact. And it's, and then, we saw people retweet that, and it's like, this is such a bad like take. And it's like, I love Lindsay, blah, 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 blah. But I think we should be allowed to criticize when a team is that, and
Or she needs to read the fan base and understand where we're at.
yes,
She's not your shrink.
Yeah.
She is not your shrink. If you are grown up enough to be a general manager in your mind, please be grown up enough to manage your own emotions. Continue, Nick.
But that's what I'm saying, because the same thing happened with Emma Lane earlier this year. Like, it was about, what was it? Don't shout you suck at Connor Ingram, but they tweeted it's like, oh, you don't understand this fan base. But it wasn't like that. It was like, oh, this is a bad tweet or something like that.
Yes. Yes.
And my message to these people, shut the hell up. That's it. All I have to say. You are not the smartest person in the room, even if you think that. This is sports. These are 6 guys on the ice at a time, basically ice skating with a twig, hitting a piece of rubber around. It is sports. And for you to go out there and start having real life shaming on something of Twitter because they don't share the same opinion of you, because maybe they want to be positive, maybe they want to find positive in 6 grown men ice skating, doing something, let them be positive. If you're going to keep sharing tweets and calling him out and saying this is a bad take, blah, 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 you're just a miserable, spoiled brat. And you know exactly who I'm talking about right now. Like, and this is like, I've had it up to here, Ann. Like, I've had it up to here. There's just so much negativity, and fine, be negative. If you don't like the direction of the team, fine. But the minute that anybody shares a positive thought about this team, anybody who maybe wants to highlight a player you don't like and objectively say, you know what, we like this guy. He's having a good season. And you know what? Good for Cole Smith. Good for Cole Smith. He has come in here and he's been a pretty good 3rd, 4th line guy. And you know what? Hey, his stats are better than Tanner Jeannot this year, which is the savior of the fan base. So, whatever. His stats are better than Alexander Carey this year. Yeah. So good for Cole Smith. It's just this. I don't know. And I know I'm ranting right now, but it's just
super frustrating. It's super frustrating.
It's just so toxic to come on to this like stupid website every single day and just be surrounded by, oh, look what this person said. This person needs to read the room, or, oh, this person thinks that. It is so frustrating to hear when people say this, or I'm losing my mind over this person thinking this. It's just not fun. It is not fun. And I am sure you at home, if you're regular listeners to me and Ann, you can tell it in this show This is not a fun show right now to do because it's just not fun to be around this much toxicity towards people. And guess what? Yeah, it's sports, it's social media. If you're a public figure, if you're a journalist, you're going to catch some flack from people with absolutely no life or nothing to live for outside of 6 grown men ice skating. But you need to check yourself. And if you get this burned out over a person you don't know getting put on waivers, if you get burnt out over a person you don't know complimenting somebody you don't like, even though you've never personally met them or sat in the same locker as them, you need to stop watching hockey, put sports on the back burner of your life, and find something to live for that's not sports. Because if you don't, you're just going to be miserable your entire life.
My grandfather had a great saying, and I thought of this last night, just kind of perusing social media. And he used to say, some people would kick if they had both legs cut off. And I think that's a little bit where this fan base is. And I get that they're frustrated. There's a lot of people that feel like the whole direction isn't right. This is not being managed right. The thing I would say is have your opinions. I'm all about hearing like different ideas. Have your opinions, but know who you're not. Dan Hynes and the coaching staff have forgotten more about hockey than any of the rest of us will remember. And I saw a comment where someone came back and said, a lot of these fan bases have played hockey at a very high level. How many of them have coached it? You know what I mean?
Right.
Like, you want to be heard, and let's hear you. We want to hear you. You want to be heard, but make sure you know who you're not, and you don't have to condescend to people who disagree with you. You don't have to kick every time the Predators do something, because there is this snowball narrative rolling down the hill right now among the Nashville Predators fan base. And here's what's real. Some of it's valid. Some of it, you are just rolling down the hill, picking up random snow and making this bigger. And it's not right. There are people tweeting out statistics with zero context to point out how bad the Nashville Predators are at managing their roster and their assets. And I'm not saying that the Predators are fantastic at it. It's definitely a discussion to have. But when you're tweeting out statistics and then someone says, well, what is like the league average on that? Oh, well, I don't know. What are you don't text out the statistics.
And let's talk about it, because it was a writer in Nashville. And again, we're not shaming, not trying to shame, but it was.
But it's just not helpful.
But he said there's only 6. What was it? The tweet was there are only 6 draft picks over the last 14 drafts that are still on the Preds roster. You looked, because you started looking at these teams. The Colorado Avalanche, which are like the gold standard that everybody is trying to emulate, had 7.
Right.
So it's like, what's the point of that? Like,
yeah, they're having a hard time looking at the stat sheet around the Stanley Cup that they have right now, because it's so big. But and look, I'm not saying that there might not be a discussion there.
Sure.
I'm saying you don't need to throw gasoline on the fire to be relevant. Let's have relevant conversations. And let's listen to other points of view, but let's do it in a way that is not unkind.
Yeah.
And not arrogant. Y'all aren't general managers. And here's what's real. You can say, I would go up to David Poile and I would ask him this. First of all, David Poile is not going to open his door to you or to any of us. And that's not a personal attack. That's just what's real. You want to know why? Because he's busy general managing a team. So stop with the grandiosity, and let's just have some real fun. Let's just have some real conversations about hockey. Yep. Some of them can be fun.
Yeah.
Some of them might be hard conversations, but like, let's cleanse the palate here, folks, and stop kicking every time. Here's what I'm going to say. Cole Smith is doing what he needs to do. If your takeaway from Lindsay Rowley's interview with Dan Hynes is that the Predators only want players with Cole Smith's talent level on this roster, you are trying to find a problem.
Yeah.
You're trying to find a problem. What he's saying is he wants players who are jumping over the boards, that are fulfilling their role, that are in it night in and night out, playing with their all. And can we just say there are some players on the roster right now that are not? So while you're busy squawking at Lindsay Rowley and at Cole Smith, take a step back and let's look at the roster and have an actual discussion.
And again, we've had plenty of those actual discussions. And for any of us like thinking like, oh, like we're like just one of those people who are, you know, homers, or, oh, we're just going to mimic the, you know, parrot what the team wants us to parrot and be positive all the time. You and I have trashed this team a few times, man.
Go back and listen.
If we're talking about prospects, we had a very long discussion about Cody Glass and why he's not playing and why that doesn't make sense. We have talked about some of David Poile's moves. We have talked about John Hynes' coaching strategy. So, you know, I just, it's, and hell, like Willie Donick and Chris Mason, you know, because that's always the people. It's like, oh, there's no, you know, against the great media coverage. They have said plenty of things too that are like, you know what, the Preds aren't doing this very well right now. They can't go out and say the team sucks because they'll get fired. But you know, they've brought out some negative too. It's just, it's like one of these things that it's, you know, it just feels like there's so much negativity right now that any positive thing is amplified. And again, like I said, if you are actively looking for a reason to be negative, like, then, you know, just
maybe find joy. Maybe it's time to find joy in something else for a little bit.
Yeah, find joy in something else. Like, you probably have a lot of really fun family, really fun friends, like hobbies, something like that. Trust me, you will be more fulfilled doing something that doesn't bring you stress and that doesn't bring other people stress. Like, and that's all I say. Like I said, there is plenty of good reasons to live outside of 6 grown men ice skating with twigs. There's, you know, I think everybody needs to find those. And that's not just a Preds fan base lesson. That's just a life lesson. That's something I have had to figure out in my life. I'm sure Anne has too. So
absolutely.
I think that's a good message to end it on. And look, this wasn't a fun show. We'll tell you that right now. This is not going on our highlight reel. But this is, I think, something that desperately needed to be said. And we promise tomorrow we will go back to regular sort of, you know, our regular sort of sports coverage. It's against the Edmonton Oilers, so we can't guarantee how much fun and positivity. Connor McDavid currently has 12 points in his last 5 games, and yeah.
And we hardly have defensemen, but we're gonna find a way to find joy in whatever comes tonight.
Yeah. Well, thank you for listening. And where can people find your work?
You can find my work at InsideThePreds.com, and you can find me on Twitter at AnnK_Mama on Ice.
You can find me at Twitter at _NSMorgan. Read my work at ontheforecheck.com. Yeah, guys, that's it. Thank you as always for making us your first listen of the day. And we sincerely hope maybe you got something out of this episode, whether it's just us listening or maybe you have a different perspective on things. We just hope that, you know, you find some light in all this, because that's what hockey's supposed to be. Hockey's supposed to be fun. So let's have some fun. We'll see you tomorrow.